At the beginning of production, around the time that I knew that I was going to get the grant for this, I had this idea that I wanted to make this show called Finding Home. And Finding Home was going to be the story that I told of me finding a place in my Indigenous community that my mother came from in the 60s. But ever since filming and ever since editing and creating everything so far, I've definitely had a shift in what finding home actually means to me. I was so determined in the very beginning to my plan and my vision was I would end up at the end of the show in Fort Chipewyan, submerged in that community and making all these fabulous connections with family members. And I still know that that is a possibility, but for now I know and understand that finding home has been here the entire time. Finding home and being home is right here. I'm very lucky in the sense that I almost got to choose and build my family. Even though we're not built on blood, we're still built on really strong relationships and bonds that have one thing in common, and that's love. I have many lifelong friends that I met in elementary school. Some that I've known, my best friend that I've known since we were in grade 3, 8 years old, and now we're in our 30s and we're still best friends, and we call each other sister, and our children call each other cousins, and we are aunts to each other's children. And that to me means more, I think, than anything, being able to hand select who I want to be by my side for this lifetime. And another takeaway from this whole journey that I was not anticipating at all was really having to understand more about what it is to connect to my Indigenous identity and what that actually means. So before I started this process of reconnecting, like I said, didn't really feel like I had a sense of purpose. I didn't feel like I belonged. I really was just kind of existing. I mentioned at the very beginning, I spent majority of my 20s just getting blackout wasted. I didn't think that I had a problem. I thought I had everything under control and that I was just having a good time, not realizing that my entire 20s had gone by and I still didn't feel like I had life even slightly figured out. I still didn't feel like I had my place. I always just felt like I didn't quite fit exactly where I was supposed to. Even in elementary school and high school, I had great friends, but I always just felt like I still didn't fit because I came from a different family. I came from a different upbringing where we were faced with a lot of issues that none of the kids in my school were dealing with. I don't know, I just always felt like I fit but not quite. And that stuck with me even into adulthood. So when I started learning about Indigenous teachings, how a lot of Indigenous teachings is that we all belong to one thing, and that is Creator or the universe or Mother Earth or however you choose to perceive it. But the idea that we are all connected, the sun, the earth, the moon, the grass, us, animals, everything is connected. And this connectivity, if you have an understanding of it, so many other things kind of make sense. And I finally found that feeling of holy I fit somewhere when I started to connect with my Indigenous identity. One of my favorite things to do still is I'll go outside, especially if I can find somewhere really quiet, where it's just the forest and it's quiet. And it feels to me so like a comfort. I'm surrounded by life and I feel like the trees are so big and I am so small, but then I look down and the things that I am standing on are so small and I am so big. I belong in everything that is happening. I am supposed to be right where I am. And I never had that feeling or that understanding of anything with any of the teachings that I had growing up. I definitely did not take any of that away from things that I learned at church or going to church groups and things like that. Once you know your place in everything, it's like a superpower. And I've heard other Indigenous people that I look up to say that being Indigenous is a superpower. And it is. It really is. And I've changed and grown so much spiritually, and I wouldn't have any of that growth and any of this expansion of my knowledge on these topics or this creative need to like just explode with all the things creative right now. I wouldn't have any of that if I didn't decide to reconnect with my Indigenous identity.
Now, when I say explode with creativity, I'm not joking. I took on a whole new endeavor of stand-up comedy.
These are all my comedy posters from all the shows that I've done. I like to kind of hang them up and have a little token, you know? This one is Diversity Hires Comedy. I paired up with two badass comedians from here in Prince George, and we put together this awesome comedy show, hoping it makes a comeback one day. And this is a show that I did with my sister back in November. My sister, Rael, that we saw earlier, she and her business partner have established themselves a group that helps up-and-coming performers, anywhere from drag to burlesque to comedy. Kind of just gives them a stage, a safe place for new and emerging artists that are like trying to establish themselves. So they've definitely helped me out a lot. I've performed with them quite a few times. We've got to travel here and there to do different shows. So it's been really great. I've had a lot of fun working with that crew, and we have a show coming up June 1st. So I'm looking forward to that one. And yeah, just other shows that I've helped host and be part of. I just like having these little tokens for me. It's like something I can look back on and be proud of. I've kind of found this newfound like confidence that I didn't know that I had before. And I also felt like I'd found an outlet for myself to express what I wanted to say in a way that other people might listen, especially if I explain it in a funny way.
Actually, just got my status card recently, aka my Bush visa. I didn't know if you guys know this, but when you're a single woman with your status card, it's like a flex. Dudes are like, "You're native? You got a status card? Can you take me hunting? Can you take me fishing?" And I'm like, "Yes, my guy, and I can also get you cheap smokes and as gas."
And for me, having a stage or a place to be able to like express exactly what I want to say, and people like it and they think it's funny, that to me is like a form of communication that truly is an art. This is my closet. I'm working on my comedy wardrobe. These are some of my favorite items. My grandma would be so proud of me. I'm very frugal. I love to thrift. So like all of these outfits that I have for my comedy shows, I've thrifted. I joke all the time, my grandma is so frugal and always has been, and I even read it in some of the notes that the ministry had made, that how frugal she was. And I'll never forget this one time when I was younger, I'd help my grandma all the time with chores, and one of them was dishes after dinner, and she would always make me wash out these freezer bags, and I would get so annoyed thinking, "Grandma, these are freezer bags, just throw them in the garbage." And she's like, "No, those are expensive. They only had frozen buns in them. They're fine, rinse it out, I can use it again." And then a few years ago, after I'd become a mom, I was doing my own dishes, and I went to go rinse out this freezer bag, and I felt like I had to call my grandma and be like, you'll never guess what I just did. But this one's my favorite. I got this. This is a glitter dress. I love this one. It's so sparkly. Thrifted that, 22 bucks. Oh, yes. This one I haven't worn yet, but this one is for the June 1st show. I think this is going to be so cute. Thrifted this bad boy. It has a tag on it for 106 bucks. Look at me go, Sylvia Roy.
I love doing stand-up comedy, but one thing I was not anticipating was connecting with people as I did stand-up comedy in this area.
Doing comedy in Prince George, I've also done comedy in the surrounding areas. So as far from Prince George west, like northwest, to as far as Terrace, Kitimat, Fraser Lake, and a lot of the communities that I have done comedy in have an Indigenous population. This area has several First Nations, and the one thing that I am finding and that I feel like with doing comedy in these communities is they are extremely underrepresented and extremely misunderstood. I went to and did a show in Fraser Lake, and my comedy set was really well received. I have a joke about Indigenous Barbie and a few other jokes that touch on what life is like as an Indigenous person. And they were like, you need to come back another time because you were so funny, but a lot of our community members that wanted to be here tonight aren't here because they're dealing with one of their young members had gone missing, and they found her in a ditch close to where she had gone missing. And so these community members had gone back to their community to help and support the family of this young missing girl that had been found. This area, Prince George, the Highway of Tears, is plagued with so many intense, very underreported on issues. The Highway of Tears is something that you either know a lot about it, or some people that live here don't even know anything about it at all. So it's one of those things that as somebody that has a platform to be able to talk on these issues, that is what I want, is to bring awareness to some of these issues. Another show that I did in Terrace, a lady came up to me and she had told me a story that a girl that she had grown up with, one of her close friends that she had grown up with, her sister had gone missing in the 90s, and they still don't have answers, and they don't know what happened, and they don't have any justice at all. And so for me, my take and my stance on comedy is I want to be somebody that represents and is a voice for those that can't do that right now. I understand I'm in a very, very unique position where I can have these conversations and I can share this information. Not everybody, especially Indigenous women, have that. And I'm very lucky for that. I'm very fortunate. This is probably the most beautiful, breathtaking landscape I've ever seen. I haven't been far, but I went to Manitoba once and I immediately realized how much I missed BC. It's just stunning, beautiful out this way. It's so vast and green and serene and quiet, and you can literally drive for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and find a body of water, whether that be a lake, a creek, a river. I love this area so much, and the beauty of this area, I feel like sometimes gets lost and swallowed up by the really hard, horrible things that this area and the First Nations have experienced.
Another hurdle that I encountered while making this documentary was the feeling that sometimes when you're reconnecting to your Indigenous identity, even your existing community members can make you feel a little bit outcasted, further leading to the point that I felt like I just didn't fit in. But I'm not alone, and I realize that a lot of people that are in the process of reconnecting to their Indigenous identity also experience the same feeling.
And one thing I really want to stress is that I felt like also too, maybe I didn't belong because I didn't have a community of my own. I didn't have community members that I could, talk to and get answers to certain things. I, in a way, still felt kind of isolated, but understanding that you can still feel connected and feel empowered by your Indigenous roots, even if you're not in those communities. You can still practice every single day things that make your spirit feel good. And for me, that has been things like smudging and the practice of self-healing and listening and sitting with the sounds of nature and listening more. I wish I would have taken into consideration earlier in my life and Indigenous teachings or being in touch with my Indigenous identity. I think it would have changed a lot for me. But again, I have to focus on what is right now. And I'm just thankful that I've had the opportunity to reconnect with my Indigenous identity and really take a look at what that means for me. I think one other thing too that really is confusing as somebody in my position as an Indigenous person trying to figure everything out is I didn't even know I didn't know if I was, what the word Métis was, if I was Métis, am I First Nation, am I Indigenous, am I Native, am I Indian? I don't know. And I was confused. Like, people ask me, like, what would you prefer that we call you? I don't know the answer, because that's exactly how I felt too. One thing I don't think is really talked about is this fear of like being labeled a pretendian is very real with me, because I haven't lived my entire life with my Indigenous identity. That's something that always looms on my mind, especially recently. I feel like that's the thing, is like everyone's a pretendian all of a sudden. I finally got my status card. So I feel like this is my proof. I hate that I had it was like I needed this to feel validated, which is horrible to say. I'm very happy and very proud that I finally have my status card. And for me, this just represents my fight to get my rights back. This was issued November 1st, 2023. So that's less than a year ago. So I have technically only been recognized as a status Indian in the eyes of the Canadian government for less than a year. The one reason I wanted to talk about that though is I think everyone just assumes that if you're Indigenous that you get all of these perks and you get free money and everyone's just rolling in free money from the government and the taxpayers, which is so not true. I have this joke that I want to tell that's like, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I might actually have some freaking money. But it's true, like I've never seen a dime. I know a lot of people that are Indigenous that don't get money in payouts. That is definitely something that is very not true. But this also, like I said, is a victory for me because when I break it down to, I think about my grandfather and I think about my grandmother, like my mom's parents. And I think about my grandfather as this I know he was a very well-respected elder in his community that knew a lot about Indigenous teachings, and he was a very knowledgeable, wise elder. I cannot let it be the reality that my mom was taken away in an act by the Canadian government to assimilate us, to make us less Indigenous and more white. If I were to just not do anything, not pursue my Indigenous identity, not collect on things like this, not acknowledging that part of me, then it's like they've won. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve by removing my mom from the community. Because they've just now taken away all of those cultural teachings and left the next generation, aka me and my sisters, with no knowledge and no connection to their Indigenous identity. I can't sit quiet and just do nothing, you know? My mom was never eligible to apply for her status because she never knew who her biological parents were. So when she found her dad, she was able to do that. She still had to do a lot of paperwork and jump through a lot of hoops though in order to get her status because they weren't going to give it to her because her mom had lost it due to the fact that she had married and lost her status. But then after Bill C-31 came out, my mom was able to apply and get her status, which then would pass down to her children. So to me, it's not about like, oh, I have a status card and this is who I am. For me, it's like, these are the rights that I feel like we are taking back and that I'm taking back, and this is who I am. And I don't want the history of what's happened so far to win, basically, and take away our rights as Indigenous people. To me, this is a victory, and I'm very, 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 very proud of this card. Even though I might not get to my final destination right now to Fort Chipewyan, I still have a lot of questions that I want answered, that I know I will have to go there in order to get them. But for right now, the piece of the story that is finding home is the people that I have and the community that is right here that I'm already part of. I have my girls and I want them to have a better place to live, a better world where there's more understanding and more work towards truth and reconciliation. And I don't want them to ever have to deal with any of the things that my sisters have had to endure as being Indigenous women, nothing that my mom has had to endure as being an Indigenous woman.
Both of my sisters experienced severe bullying throughout their school years, so bad to the point that they both had to drop out.
Grade 7 was pretty bad, and like that's when bullying started to get really bad for me. And then I remember finding out that a bunch of the kids knew that I didn't have a dad, and they knew we were Indigenous, and they would just say the nastiest things, like, oh, I smell an Indian, you know, and just like, for me, school was really hard because I was always the new kid, and then I got a bit older, and then I started getting really bullied, and then that just sort of progressed into me, like, really just not having a good time with school. I got better in, like, after junior high school, but honestly, my younger years in school were pretty bad. Like, I had to drop out in grade 9 because I was being so bullied by this handful of girls that were my friends, and the principal suggested that I drop out because it was easier for just me to vanish than the rest of them, I guess. I don't know.
My younger sister Claire also has a very similar story. She recounts extreme bullying and also having to drop out of school.
Overall, it wasn't the best experience. I did drop out of high school, but did go back and get my grade 12. But I had teachers who would be condescending towards my intelligence and making me feel as though I wasn't good enough. I didn't always get along the best with other girls, or I guess other students in general. I did have a close-knit group of friends, but that was not by choice. It so happened that we were all put into the group for the Native kids after school, and so all of us Native kids, we just kind of grouped together. I mean, they were my best friends forever, nothing wrong with that, but it's just, you know, kind of stuck out in that sense. It was like, oh, those are just the Native kids, so.
When she got to high school, the bullying only progressed. As her older sister, I wanted to give her some advice. I told her to fight back if she needed to, and to stick up for herself, which she did. But ultimately, she ended up dropping out in grade 9 after a full-on fist fight in the hallway with another girl that had been bullying her for years.
I don't want them to have to ever face anything. And I'm ready to make it better. And I know it's for the future of our children. And when they say every child matters, that's what they mean. Every child matters. If we want to make real change, we all have to work together so that we can continue another generation of healing, so that these 7 generations of healing will continue. It needs to happen now, because there's some generations that are still in it, and that won't change for them for the next 2, maybe 3 generations. And it's scary to think about that, because a generation is a long time. That's why everything that we do right now is so important for the future.